Hi friends, this is Chris. Welcome back to the channel, and this is your daily news fix. So we're going to talk about the treasury yields are spiking, an update on the war, and why now is a terrible time to buy a house. So let's just jump right in and look at the headlines together here. 10-year treasury yield tops 5%, first time since '07. What the heck? And every time we read these kind of headlines, always saying first time since '08, first time since '07, just like the great financial crisis. And guys, I'm pushing 50. I lived through this stuff, so I can tell you it can get really ugly. And when you see these kind of headlines, it doesn't necessarily make me feel better. But I will say, don't be scared, be prepared, right? So this is why we do this every day, just having a kind of a general gist and understanding what's going on in the world. So you can see here, I mean, yields, we're kind of, this is a 10-year, we're kind of on a one-way ticket down. We basically bottomed out, and now we're kind of just spiking up. So, you know, you can see in the past, it was higher. You know, it's anyone's guess where the mean's going to be, where it's going to end up. I will say, though, when I remember seeing the speech, talking about this a couple of days ago, where Biden was saying, hey, we need to, go to war in Ukraine and Israel. Give me 106 billion, not million, billion. And actually, the last time I made the video, the number was, I read 82 billion, but now it's like 106 billion all of a sudden. And one of the things that I think that may be going on is that there's fears that they're going to be trying to sell you a bunch of bonds to finance the war. Because essentially, if you understand the numbers of this stuff, the national debt is 33 trillion. So it's quite a lot. And in each year, the government has a $2 trillion deficit. So, where are we going to get the money for the war? Sell everybody bonds, right? And, the war itself, I'm against it. I've already expressed that. And, my personal point of view is I don't think either side is innocent here. I think there's blood on both sides, and unfortunately, and it's been going on for a long time, and we're getting involved with something that could go for years, to be further frank. And so, it's ugly. There's no other way to put it. And this is what I'm just showing you. This is kind of what headlines look when I look at it, and it's like, talking about ground invasions. They're talking about multiple fronts on Israel. The death toll at the moment is on the Israeli side, 1,400 people. On the Palestinian side, 4,300. Evidently, though, there's been people also being killed lately in the West Bank. I think you're having fights between settlers and Palestinians. It was saying here, Jewish settlers and Palestinians are being killed. Moreover, which is even more crazy, the number of hostages keeps going up. So now we're at 222. And this is a really, really tough problem to solve, right? Where are all they? Which countries are they from, right? How are we going to get these people? So my understanding is Hamas wants a release of prisoners from their side, like prisoner exchange kind of thing. So it's just, the whole thing is ugly, okay? That's all I have to say. It's ugly. I think you already know this. You don't need to tell me that. But, this is... sadly, like, we're spending a bunch of money on weapons and stuff like this, and that's why I'm more against it. Just, there's multiple reasons, but I don't want to get into too much. I don't want to make this just about war, but I mean, it's hard to avoid. You can look at this here. Evidently, Israel is telling the people who are Israeli on the northern side to start pulling back. Is not safe, and regular Israeli people, this was interesting, are buying up guns. It's like double of last year. The gun sales have been declining, and there was another interesting thing which I was reading about here. I guess there's a black market for guns in Israel. So what they do is, they were saying here, they steal them from the army, and then I was reading about this. But I can tell you. Oh yeah, here it is right here. At the same time, a healthy black market of guns stolen from the army has thrived in both sales to Palestinians and Jewish Israelis, and kind of what I was thinking about when I put all the stories together, which I try to do for you guys every day, is, at the end of the day, who wins with this kind of stuff? Well, people who sell weapons wins, right? People who will build cities win. I'm old enough to remember the whole Halliburton stuff regarding Iraq. If you don't know, American military, and this is also a true story, the NBC is owned by General Electric, who makes weapons, and then NBC was like touting how great the weapons were. So obviously, weapons companies make money with this kind of stuff. And then, the government contracts to rebuild Halliburton was the big one. And I think it was named Cheney used to be in Halliburton as the vice president. And it was a whole fiasco. But the whole point is, like, people do make money off war. It's a real thing. And so, I mentioned that is because it's like, why does this stuff keep going? Because there's money to be made off these things. And so when I see that people are just, buying guns, I'm just thinking, yep, just keep it going, just keep selling those weapons and keep shooting each other. And I'm not taking either side here. I'm just saying I just want people to stop shooting each other. So that's my point of view on that. And I know we can talk forever on that stuff, but I don't think I'm saying anything crazy. Just I hope the war ends soon. And when you read these kind of headlines too, you can read this here: China's stock market drops to pre-pandemic low. It's just on a one-way ticket, And interesting enough, there was a quote that really sparked my attention, just how it was worded, and I'll read it to you guys. It says here, global investors need 2 floors before they get back into China. They need a floor for the geopolitics and a floor for the Chinese economy. Only then can we start pricing things back. And it is funny because I would completely agree with that statement, right? I mean, we need things like, and is there a floor? I mean, like right now we're looking at the conflict between the Israelis and Palestine. It's been going on for years, for decades. And, what do we, how are we going to solve this? And moreover, the Chinese economy, like, for example, you read these kind of headlines that they're like arresting people now. Yet another company, it's like every day they're arresting someone new, like high up people. So this was like some sort of advertising company. I think I might know people who work there because it mentioned M Media and was in Shanghai. I used to live in Shanghai, and in fact, I write a book about my experiences in China called Positive Angle, and I encourage you guys, if you're curious about my experience and stuff like that, please check it out. Because on my channel I have a different perspective of stuff because I've been to these places. Another example, I used to live in Japan, and I found this one interesting as well. I guess Japan's looking into whether or not Google is, doing antitrust stuff or monopolies, that's the easier way to say it. And essentially, if you guys know this, is like, are they figuring out ways to dominate the market illegally, essentially? I think there's a real possibility, talk about the search market here, I think there's a real possibility that the Google and Amazon could get broken up. So from my point of view, I don't think I've heard anything rumblings of ever Apple getting broken up or like that, but I think Amazon and Google face a real thing. Theoretically, Facebook could. I think theoretically, we'll see. And so, even when markets are down and people are sad and such kind of stuff, there's always deals to be made and stuff like that. So, like, for example, Chevron evidently is buying Hess for $53 billion. Like, geez, if you got an extra $53 billion, you should buy Hess. And moreover, which is actually really interesting, this was a quote from the CEO over at Chevron. He was saying here, you got to hear it for yourself. He says, Mike Wirth defended the company's plans to continue growing its output of oil and gas, arguing that Chevron was, quote, not selling a product that is evil, we're selling a product that's good. So you heard it here from Chevron. They're selling something that's good. My personal opinion is that I hope we can cut down on oil consumption, but also to be fair, crude oil is not just for cars and energy and stuff like that. It's a big part of plastics as well. So we got to figure out, like, if we were to get off of plastics, what would we replace it with? And for those of you who are into that stuff, please let me know. I'm actually generally curious because I think, if we're to say get off of gas cars, we would go to say, batteries, solar, etc. But what would we do to replace plastic? And I just don't know. I'd be curious to your guys' thoughts on that. I mentioned at the intro that this is the worst time to buy a house. So evidently, it was really interesting. Right now, so you can see the headline here, there's never been a worse time to buy instead of rent. So it's 52% more money to buy than rent. So the numbers were like, and it depends on which market, obviously. But in some situations, the last 3 years, your mortgage has gone up like 60%, and then your rent's only gone up like 22%, right? So they've both gone up, but just it's more expensive to buy than rent by 52%. And this is the chart right here. You guys can see this. And they're saying the last time this was really high was like in 2006, and it only reached like, in the 30s. So we're actually at really high levels. And one of the things that's going on, I think you guys know this, we've been following, mortgage rates are like 8% at the moment, like in that range. And moreover, prices are still high because there's not much inventory. And it's interesting because, we've had this big movement where people moving from the big cities moving out to, other cities because of the pandemic. You guys remember this stuff. And I think there's really a lot of investment speculation coming, be it from, big Wall Street type companies or real estate syndicates, which we've talked about on this channel. And you can find my previous video where me, Kevin, is threatening to sue me. You got to see it for yourself. I think there's a lot of, market forces here that are making it more difficult for just your, regular average, Mary and Joe family, just, single family, to buy a place. And, right now it makes, money sense to rent. So don't feel like you have to buy if mortgages are too high and prices are too high. You can wait. Moreover, for those of you who are into this UAW stuff, and this is pretty big deal. I guess they're still on strike. And this is talking about the auto workers, and I relate to housing because regular people are, struggling depending on your neck of the woods. And one of the things that's been fascinating is like, I thought that we would see a lot more strikes and more unemployment. I had talked about this for a long time. If you've been watching the channel, I said, hey, with prices going up, I'm sure workers are going to want to get paid more money. It wasn't hard to see. This is one that's always been on the table. And I want to read what's going on here at the moment because they're still sort of negotiating. So I guess they're looking for wage increases, right? So the original offer was like 9% over 4 to 5 years. Now I guess they're getting 23% increase over, a 4 to 5 year period. And they're also improving essentially the, rate at which you get increases and better your pension, this kind of stuff. There was an interesting quote here, this saying here, this is coming from the Ford. He's saying, one thing we've been hearing over and over from these companies is I think this is the union guy. One thing we've been hearing over and over from these companies is how they've offered us record contracts. You know what? We agree. These are already record contracts, but they come at the end of decades of decline, so it's not enough. So that's essentially the argument that you'll make is like, hey, you're giving us a raise now, but you're making up for all the things that has been happening in the past. And I think for a lot of regular people out there, they're struggling. Now, the auto workers, it's a long conversation, but they do get a decent salary in comparison to other jobs, and they have a pretty good benefits package in comparison. But they're going for more, and by all means, go for what you think that you deserve. Moreover, even JP Morgan, this is Jamie Dimon, he's saying, hey, this is a quote here, warns that the world may be facing most dangerous time in decades. And this is essentially why I tell you guys to be prepared, not scared, right? When you look around and you see like sort of what's going on at UAW, this kind of stuff, remember what's happening in Hollywood. The writers negotiated their deal in Hollywood, but the actors are still on strike, from my understanding, last time I checked. And I think we may see more of this stuff. Like I think it was last week, Kaiser Permanente, I think it's like a lot of their nurses walked out, this kind of stuff. When you see that costs are still elevated on things, I think regular people are struggling. And I'll just give you an example. My wife and I, we went to the grocery store recently, and apples, because I like apples, it was like $2 per apple, which seemed like a lot to me. This is the thing, the older you get, you remember what things used to cost. So like when you're young and if like, you went to the store for the first time, you're like, oh, okay, apples are always $2, but it just seemed really expensive. And I notice it like when you notice it, like, because every day, we go out to eat or we go, to the grocery store like that, and that seems elevated. Or, you see like the prices of housing is still elevated here in Korea, and I know it is in USA. I don't care necessarily what the inflation number says in terms of like, how can I say, I always use the same example. Like number may come down, but it's coming down because, something like, say, TVs are coming down in price or used cars are coming down in price. But like, I'm not buying, TVs and used cars at the moment. I'm buying food. I'm buying electricity, right? So like our electricity just went up last month. I can't remember what the percentage was, but it was big news all over Korea. And obviously regular people aren't really thrilled about that because it's, we all pay energy all the time, and same way with food. So, I think it's going to be a while until things get back into under control, and the Fed and the government is have real challenge, right? They got two wars to fight for how to pay for that. You also have, inflation that could spiral out of control. So you got to control that because you want a happy medium. Essentially, is you want essentially healthy, but I think they always say like full employment and healthy prices, this kind of stuff is what you want. So anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on any one of these stories. I think it's been a crazy time in the news. I hope you're all safe out there. And, I know I make jokes sometimes with this stuff, but guys, I really get it. When I read the news stuff, I know there's real people affected with these things. And I try my best to share some honest opinions and facts with you. So Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you next video.